And we're recording. Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi.
All right. So
Hey.
we're all here this week, so that's good. I'm in charge this week. So did everyone get an opportunity to read all the material?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I think
Believe
so.
so.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff every week, so hopefully we got it all. So pretty much as like the leader wants me to start off by asking some background questions. It wants me to direct it at one person, but I'm going to leave it as an open discussion so anybody can answer when they want. So what information have you gained on sexual harassment? Like new information have you gained since we started reading this week?
For me, I think for me, it was harassment by supervisor. Because I know that the company will be held liable for their supervisors harassment what's that called behavior. So yeah, I thought like it's just like only like personal thing they can take the issue, but I just really think like the company they have responsibility to take the harassing behavior of the supervisory, and I had some experience with that too.
Yeah, a lot of times we hear that usually it's a supervisor position that is, in a harassing position as well. We read about that in some of the cases too, about
Yeah.
supervisors taking advantage of their employees.
That's right.
Is there anything else that you guys found interesting that you'd like to share?
I did think it was, I guess in my head, I always thought that sexual harassment was like always involved opposite sexes. So for some reason, I was surprised to think that you could file sexual harassment on somebody of your own sex. I don't know why that struck me as
Yeah.
a surprise.
Nowadays you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and I feel like as the laws kind of change with like the LGBTQ plus stuff, like it may become more common that you hear cases like this,
Yeah.
as those people are more maybe prominent in their job positions, more known, that maybe people will file claims that they may not have thought of before.
Yeah.
So what is sexual harassment?
Unwelcome sexual advances.
So is that like just touching?
No,
Nope.
words.
Same thing.
Words.
Like I'm sure you've worked around enough people to understand like what sexual harassment is, because it's all over the place.
Yeah, and it's probably, I mean, of course, always starts with words. I'm sure, or most of the time.
Yeah.
The way you look, the way you, the way you look, the way you what's that called? Body language. Like it can be start from body language, without saying anything. The way you
Yep.
look, and you put your lips and everything. It's just like it's just leading to what's that called to the sexual harassment.
Yeah, so it seems like unwelcome. When it says unwelcome sexual advances, it seems like that's kind of a fine line, because what's unwelcome? What if the boss says this woman did something and she's like, no, I didn't. You know what I mean? Like you're saying though, what if she was giving him these
false cues?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would it be like if you're in a situation where you're in an office and there's a very attractive man who flirts with all the girls, and no one really says anything about it. But say a less attractive man tries the same thing, and that comes off as sexual harassment. Would that justify like a court case, or do you think that would fall apart?
I think it all depends upon how the ladies in the office want to go about it. Because they could either, I mean, at least with what I've seen, a lot of it depends on their opinion towards everything and it's all up to them really about what happens to the accused person.
Yeah, it has to be like a pretty strong case against that one person, though. So.
Yeah, that's pretty not very fair for that person, because they're not attractive, so then they get in trouble. And the other guy doesn't.
Yeah. But we kind of see that like in our modern world is like people will get judged on the way they look.
Yeah, that's true.
So I feel like there has to be some like fine lines put in place of like conduct.
Yeah, and I think that like it's just, and you see so often nowadays, like especially with like entertainment shows and stuff, if somebody's even accused of it, they cut them right away. Like they don't really mess around with it like at all.
Yeah. You're judged before there's a jury.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're done. We'll investigate, and either way, your career is probably like,
over with,
tarnished,
ruined. Yeah.
So, the lady in the story, depending on her story, do you think it would constitute sexual harassment?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, which lady? Because there was two, right? There was the lady who was on the phone with her boss, and then there was the other lady who didn't mind that the guy was rubbing her shoulders, and the friend told her to file a complaint.
The Lone Star lady, the one who was on the phone.
That's Martinez. She has a pretty clear case, right? Like,
Right.
it's pretty easy to get
Yeah.
that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So would you say her case is quid pro quo? I can't talk, I'm sorry. Quid pro quo or hostile work environment?
I'd say hostile work environment.
Hostile work, yeah.
Yeah. I know it's pretty easy. Like she was never offered anything.
Yeah.
And then he was even making threats.
Yeah.
She's just afraid to lose what she had, not that she was getting anything more.
Yeah. Whereas, like Laura said, the other lady with the shoulder rub, that could technically go under like quid pro quo, just because she's receiving a kind of favor.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you would file under that. I think that could be under like the reasonable circumstances as well.
But what if that lady doesn't think that it's sexual harassment, then is it? You know what I mean? Like, if she's fine with him rubbing her shoulders.
Yeah, she doesn't have to file. That depends on her, unless she feels in danger.
Could be welcomed.
Yeah, it could be welcomed.
Yeah.
Maybe she likes a good shoulder rub.
Some other people they need attention, but when people come, they starting to complain.
Yeah, some people just want attention.
Lots of ladies in the workplace. I think like it's starting from how they dress. They asking for someone to harass, Yeah. But like but I think they the ladies should be aware from how they dress and everything. If they work together with the guys too, like yeah, because some other people they need attention from the boys, and they start dressing, and when the boys starting to touch them or say something to them, they get offended. So
Yeah,
like it's kind of
And you have to watch out, because even though
Yeah.
that shoulder rub may be welcomed this week. She doesn't
Yep.
like you in a couple weeks or a couple months, then that guy better watch out. So either way,
Exactly
like
what I was thinking.
welcomed or not, like
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that just kind of goes to show like you should always have like a professional manner in any work environment.
Yep.
yeah.
Things change so quickly.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking, Drew.
Yeah.
That guy's crazy.
So,
He is.
so according to that Lone Star document, do you think that the council's office gave him the proper advice on how to go forward?
Yes and no.
I mean,
I think he obviously needs to report it because that's not fair. And I like that she said that some people are in a position to speak for themselves. And so I think in that aspect, yes. But on the other side, like, I can't help but think as we read through all of these different things, like, it's his word against her word. Where are the witnesses? Like, so he overheard her on the phone call and nobody saw him put his hand in her shirt. So it's the boss against the secretary. And I just can't help but wonder if there's no evidence, what's going to happen? Is it going to get thrown out? And then in the end, she gets pushed out of her job because there was no evidence. And so now they're just going to transfer her to kind of separate the two, and he doesn't get in trouble. And now she's at a different spot. I just wonder if there was better advice on how to make sure that it stopped and that there was a clear evidence that something was happening. I don't know what that would have been, but
That kind of touches on like the next question is, why might a lawyer representing the company insist on instituting a formal investigatory process?
because that's what everybody says, right? Like, no matter what happened
I didn't do it.
in any business, like, so we did an investigation, our investigation came back, and no matter what the finding is, they can always go back and say, oh, we did an investigation, we did our part, don't sue us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Goes both ways.
Yeah, I think the company, the law for the company is you've got to do it. You've got to investigate.
As it should be. They should investigate.
Yeah.
If it's just to cover their own tail, that's a safe thing to do, because we heard complaints and we wanted to follow up and find out what was going on.
Right.
Like, here's our work, so don't fine us because we tried to stop it.
Right. I would like to know what their
I
next.
thought the advice that she gave him was good.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was done. I was just going to say I would like to know what the next steps were.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was pretty much to talk to the EEO office, and then
Yeah.
just that's it for him. He doesn't have to do anything else.
Yeah, I don't know. He'll probably have to write a statement, but I would like to know what the company does next in order to investigate it or just try and stop it. Like, what's their next step?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like this one's a little hard because if I remember right, it was two companies were merging, correct?
Yeah.
So where do the
Yeah.
two companies, do they have to get,
Yeah.
do the new people in charge have to just make up all these new policies, or can they just carry over? That's where it gets kind of gray, because they're still in the process of becoming one group.
Right.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder when they say we're going to do an investigation, it's like if the sexual harassment was like getting worse and worse, like I wonder if there's something they could do, like, because who knows how long that investigation is going to take. Like, what if it's happening every day and under the company's watch and there's no investigation that's happening yet? Like, I just wonder what the time frame is like on that. I don't know.
Yeah. Because would it be quicker for the company just to take an action and to solve the problem?
Yeah, like suspend, give him a leave of like a few days, investigate, and then like decide from there or something. I don't know.
I was thinking um, of how other people trying to because the case they don't have any evidence, but if the investigator they should look on the history of the if there's any complaining or about that that workplace they or any harassment from the environment or what's the organization, they should look up on that history if there's any contention there. If, I just felt like because an investigation, I don't know how long it will take and stuff. The thing is, they should look so on that.
Yeah, and I think that would definitely come up in an investigation where they would check out like previous history or previous cases and see if any of them involved the same participants. So at this point, does he have any more options, or is it just he only can call that one place?
I think he has lots of options. I don't think he has very many good options, but he has lots of options.
Yeah.
I think his best option is to follow the lawyer because he wants to cover himself too. So if he starts, interfering with telling the boss, and I even hesitated when he told her because I'm like, that wasn't the instructions that he got was to tell her. He was just supposed to call that number and have an investigation. So it's like, I feel like it's for him legally, it's better just to listen to the number, the lady off the number that he called to cover his butt in case something like, I don't know, something comes back.
Yeah, and him not doing anything, then he could get in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for him, she doesn't want to file the suit because she's afraid of retaliation.
Yeah.
So, like, what protects her?
Honestly, I think it's a really hard situation to be in, and I think the only way that he can protect her is by reporting it like he should, and then just making sure that he not necessarily he himself never leaves her alone, but that she is constantly surrounded by people, so that that other gentleman wouldn't have an opportunity to be one-on-one with her to intimidate her or threaten her or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought she could have given him better advice on like, okay, don't tell like her or him that you've called, or it's okay to tell, or like, because he doesn't want it to happen to her again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they should have better steps, right? Like step 1, you call and report it. And then
Yeah.
in the meantime, while you're waiting for the investigation to start, these are your best practices. Like that would have been helpful for him. Who do you communicate to? What are your action steps? What are your, safety net? What's your game plan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, from him sitting down with Julia, he's eliminated some options of not reporting it because now she has sat down with him and talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In his phone call with the company lawyer in the counsel's office, he gave no names. At that point, everything was anonymous. So he could have passed everything away and just got it off his desk and moved on.
Right.
But at this point, he's kind of stuck. He has to report it, or else he's going to be held liable by the company, by her. It's all going to come back to him at one point.
But I am skeptical to believe that anything is anonymous. Like everybody has an extension at work, everybody has caller ID. So the lady was probably like, "Oh yeah, you're totally anonymous," as she's like writing down. Like, okay, I can track that extension.
Yeah.
But
She's looking up his
Anonymous.
history over the last 10 years.
yeah.
So it wants us to do a role play, but I think it would be better if we could just talk about what we could do instead. So if we're a potential victim of harassment, what would you do in this situation if you're Julia?
I would keep specific documentation of every time it happens, and if possible, get someone who can verify it, because what the problem I see is it's he says, she says.
Yep, I agree.
And I mean, if this is happening on a regular basis, she needs to have documentation as to what he's doing, when he's doing it, so that they have the information to come back on.
I agree.
I would try to get transferred or something. That's what I would do.
Well, keep a recorder on yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense because
I don't know.
stories change over time. If yours is written on paper, it's going to be consistent. And if he's in this position of trying to defend himself, I feel like he's going to flounder on his story.
And also, if he says it's my word against yours, I don't know, maybe wearing a camera or something it would definitely help your case if you had documentation on that camera of that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, put a GoPro on your jacket.
Yeah.
So what if you're an accused harasser? Like, say someone accuses you of doing it. What can you do?
Good question.
Well, depends if you're guilty or not.
All right, let's play both sides. What if you are guilty?
Then you're caught.
You're in trouble.
Yeah.
I would wager to say that somebody that is sexually harassing somebody at work is never going to think that they're guilty of sexual harassment. I'm sure that they're going to think that it was warranted, that she liked it, that she wanted it. Like, I don't think anybody's going to sit there and be like, totally was harassing her.
Yeah,
I think
I totally did it.
I think they would justify their actions as to how it was welcomed or wanted. I think it would take a lot of people to find one that said, yeah, I know they didn't like it, but I just kept doing it anyway.
Well, that's why that's
I
the
think
fine
you're right.
line with unwanted.
Yeah.
Because anyone could say, "Oh,
What if
she
she
wanted
wanted
it,"
it?
or yeah.
So what would you do if you know nothing was wrong and someone's just trying to get you out of the way? How would you defend yourself? Because at that point, it's word against word, kind of like he said, it's my word against yours.
If I belonged to a union, I would find my union rep. If I was part of a corporation without a union, I would find the corporate attorney. I would find other coworkers that worked with me that would be willing to write statements that they had seen us interact and that it was never uncomfortable or inappropriate. I would try and get as many people to back up my story as possible. I'd harass them into doing it.
Just not sexually harass them.
Yeah, just verbal harassment. Only doing it.
So what if you're like the cost and you're just a bystander? Like, what power do you have?
I think you should do the right thing, because it could mean somebody being sent to jail for something they didn't do, or helping somebody like with their case and helping them to be able to accusation or something like that.
It's like if I'm guilty, I will tell the truth. It's worth it to tell the truth and face it. Like it's your own decision. Like like I have to face it. Like I don't have to fight for my right and something like that. I think I will go whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So, yeah, so like in this case, he's a bystander, and he has an idea of who is doing it. Should he confront the person?
Mm,
No,
no.
no.
Why not?
Depending on your role, like depending on what your position is in the company,
Mhm.
I think it would vary. And did she say his name or did she just say it's my boss? Because that would be a huge mistake to confront, but you 100% sure who it was.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that he thought is like it was the guy that worked in the office next door,
Mhm.
but like he wasn't sure, if I remember right.
Yeah, she said my
I don't-
boss, and then he said a name.
Yeah. But she never clarified.
No.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
could you imagine how embarrassing it would be to walk up to somebody who's not guilty and just start going off on them?
Yeah.
I don't know. So where I work, there's a union, and when somebody's in trouble, they invite you to come to a meeting, and that person gets to bring their union rep, and then the building brings their union rep, and like there's a whole bunch of people involved in the conversation. Like, so I would say never confront somebody alone, and always make sure you have multiple people there with you,
Mhm.
and make sure that person also has somebody, because you could. I mean, it could go both ways. Like they could say you said something, they could say they said something. Like everybody should have somebody there as a support witness. I don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely would not want to be alone in one of those situations. Which is the next one, is legal counsel. How would legal counsel like take part in that? Kind of like Laura said, it's always someone there to defend your word.
And not only even like just defend it, but also just to make sure that the rules are being followed, that like they're not ganging up on you or you're not ganging up on them, like just to make sure that like all the rules are being followed.
The right advice and the legal one.
So I think we've got some good answers. What's cool about this one is it actually gives us a wrap up on the case. And I'm going to read it to you. When Jack called corporate counsel, he forgot about caller ID.
Ah, I was right. Suckers.
The lawyer used the information he gave her to figure out the people he was talking to. She contacted the Lone Star EEO, which launched a formal investigation. The EEO tried hard to get Martinez to cooperate. French denied all charges, claiming that Martinez had made up her story to protect herself from pending layoffs. DeCoste was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any. Julia Martinez's husband found out what was going on, beat up Julia, and forced her to quit.
Wow.
French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed. Yeah, go ahead.
The husband beat up
Julia.
who?
Yeah, his
The
wife.
wife?
The wife, yeah, and made her quit the job.
What in the heck?
Yeah.
That was a plot twist.
Yeah. French survived the investigation with only a bruised reputation. He blamed everything on DeCoste for calling corporate counsel. There was such animosity between Coste and French that DeCoste left the company after 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And
I'm not
Wow.
by that. That
in
doesn't.
the end,
Wow.
he got the worst of it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess getting beat up is worse, but he is innocent, and he has to leave his job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't see that coming.
No.
That was the exact opposite. She got beat up. He didn't. And the guy who reported it left the company.
Yeah.
So does it sound like Lone Star has a sexual harassment policy?
No.
Not a specific enough one.
Yeah, nothing's really set in stone.
And it's hard.
Oh.
I think it's hard when, since the lady didn't cooperate from the beginning, it's kind of hard to like judge it a whole lot, because if she would have just from the very like the beginning just went and reported it, it could have been a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like she didn't, because she was so scared of her husband, which she should have been if he beats her up. You know what I mean?
I mean,
So that's probably what she was most scared of.
Yeah.
In either sense here, she should have reported it. I mean,
Yeah.
she's going to get beat up either way. She might get something out of it.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate, but I think that more often than not, sexual harassment cases end up just like this, because it's
Oh, yeah.
this versus his word, and regardless of who the aggressor was, it's extremely hard to prove any sort of harassment, because of course they're doing it when no one's looking. And more often than not, I assume that to solve the problem, they transfer one or the other person, and it ends up being exactly like this. And I'm not surprised that she was beat up, because she was extremely nervous of her husband finding out. And she probably has realized the hard way that when she's told somebody that her husband beats her up, she gets beat up again, which is probably why she didn't want to mention
That's true.
what's happening. So obviously she's got a lot of problems, and she obviously knows the hard way that speaking the truth doesn't always get justice.
Yeah.
So what policies, procedures, or training might have improved the situation for Jack?
Well, he would have known nothing's anonymous,
Yeah.
right? Unfortunately, I think he was always going to be the one stuck in the middle, because like I said, I don't think anyone really is going to admit that they harassed somebody. And if your company is not willing to protect the person that reported it, then there's always going to be fallout. So for me, I feel like the flaw in the story is that his corporate or his company should have kept his name private and should have done their formal investigation with just the two people involved and spared at least one person.
Yeah.
So I don't know
I
how.
agree.
I don't know how their names got out in the first place. Usually, I would assume that these things are kept very confidential.
I would think, but not
So-
always.
For the fact that all three of them are known in the company at this point, that it caused animosity. Ron French's reputation was bruised. Julia had to quit her job because she was beaten. You know, I don't know where the fallout was, but it seems that the investigation dropped a lot of protocol and allowed these people to become known.
Yeah.
I agree. And if he would have known, keep his mouth shut when he saw it and just reported it, if they could have had a policy to say, okay, now don't say anything about it, like keep it secret, like we'll investigate.
Yeah.
I do think you're right, Drew. I do think that maybe he should not have said anything to her, because she also could have been the one that was saying his name. Like, she could have also said, well, it wasn't me that reported it. It was, so-and-so. And
Yeah.
so he did keep his name confidential. And she was the one that said it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's so. I have to ask each one of you, what was the most important thing you learned from this case?
The justice system doesn't give you justice. But I already knew that, so I didn't really do that. It's a good reminder.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it's hard to win a sexual harassment case.
Yeah.
It's important to keep the evidence, try to record something, even North Dakota or Denver, it's but like I learn a lot, like more, but just yeah.
I think sexual harassment is tough. I read it over a couple of times, and I mean the law. I mean they do tell you what sexual harassment, the definition is of sexual harassment, but when it comes to sexual harassment, unless somebody sees it, it does become a he says, she says, and that, I mean, to me that's very difficult. And I don't know, I guess, doing what they do in Scouts, where you keep too deep leadership, you never are in a room by yourself with somebody else. It's a tough thing, and I think it's more prevalent today, but I still think it's something that is a difficult thing in the workplace.
That's true. I'd say the most important thing is, if you're going to accuse, or, well, I guess if you're, say, a man in a supervisor role, to always have like a door open, or more in like somewhat of a public place, so you can never ever be like charged of that, and so that you have like evidence. I have my sister-in-law, actually, she worked at McDonald's, and she was being harassed by a lot of the employees, and they eventually went back and looked at the video camera, and they had actually like shoved her in a freezer, and like they had the evidence on cameras of them like touching her and stuff, and she ended up winning a lot of money. She settled like too soon, in my opinion, but it was the evidence in the end that, but I mean, kind of helped her with her case.
That's probably why they have a lot of cameras in a lot of companies nowadays, because of that.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I do security for like large corporations. So, one of the big ones out here, we're doing, a $2 million project of just cameras, just to protect people.
Yeah.
I have a third screen on my desk of just cameras throughout my whole building.
Yeah.
That's just what it is.
Yeah. And we know that, so these cases are hard to win. We recently saw in the news, was it Bill Cosby? Like, everything in that case, there was very little evidence. Yeah, it can flip either way depending on who tells the story. And I guess I'm going to take some words from the vice president. And he never eats with a woman alone. And people mocked him for it. But I think that when applied correctly is a good policy in order to protect yourself, especially in the situation of a leader.
Yeah.
So that's the end of this discussion. If you had to rate the quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10, how would you rate it?
10.
10. Yep. Laura
think you
came
did
up
good.
with good ideas.
Yeah.
Going to Hollywood.
And then is there anything that I could do better next time?
I think you did good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I think it's important to keep, because they can drag on forever, but you kept it moving really good. So I like that.
Yeah, and hopefully it didn't take forever this time.
Nope.
So I'm going to stop the recording, and then if we can, it would be nice if we could talk about our project a little bit, just for a few minutes, since Lisa's here and she can kind of give us some direction. I'm going to stop the recording right now.